the tinyurl.com URL, which will bring you to this particular Google Earth layer. And what this is if you can download it and you can visualize it at that URL, and it will show you how the media versus the citizen journalists versus Ushahidi reported during the first violence in Kenya after the election, so primarily January 2008. And what this visualization will show you is where and when and about what the mainstream media was reporting, in contrast to citizen journalism. As you may know, perhaps, Kenya has Africa's most thriving blogosphere. And so many of our colleagues and friends were out with digital cameras on Twitter and documenting and blogging in near real time about events that were happening. And so you can see there will be the blue dot. When you visualize it, will be the blue dot. And just see where today we're reporting from and about what he crowdsourced information, which was already geo-referenced and timestamped. You can see how the crowd was reporting, so to speak. And if you watch the animation a number of times, you'll start seeing some potential patterns. One of them is that the crowdsourced information that we picked up had wider coverage than the other dots. The mainstream media would only start reporting once there were body counts, once violence had broken out. The citizen journalists would tend to start documenting as tensions started to increase. But for me, the biggest take-home of this study was that there was not as much overlap in time and in space about the reports. So when you look at these different color-coded dots, the yellows and the blues and the greens don't actually overlap a lot. And one take-home from that is that you can really look at this as an ecosystem of information that is complementary, that crowdsourcing can complement mainstream media and citizen journalism within the context of speech 2.0, freedom of speech 2.0. And also it's important to realize that because of this, a number of human rights violations that would have gone completely undocumented had actually been documented by the crowd, and otherwise, for all intents and purposes, would not have existed or happened if it had not been documented in this respect. So there's quite a lot of power in looking at this crowdsourcing approach. Next slide, please. I'm not sure if the videos here are going to work, but I just to share with you some different examples ever since Kenya happened of the many different ways that Ushahidi has been used in different contexts. There have been several deployments of Ushahidi around the world. The top right, you should see a map of Gaza where Al Jazeera journalists reported in real time on some of the developments that were taking place. On the left, at least for me, you see the swine flu, crowdsourced training with swine flu, and then election monitoring in India, as well as disaster response in the Philippines. So a number of different use cases, and there have been others as well: wildlife conservation, corruption monitoring, crime monitoring, and so on. Next slide, please. The next slide, you'll see one of our latest deployments, Voice of Kibera, which is a project led by our colleagues at OpenStreetMap, in particular Mikhail Maron in Nairobi. And this is another way to give power of speech to those who don't even have speech 1.0, right? And maybe not even speech 0.0. And in a way, sort of leapfrogging this idea of, first of all, having landline phones and then mobile phones, and going straight to an Ushahidi-like platform that can crowdsource some of this information. And this is a project that is community-led, that is participatory, so you have residents of Kibera themselves who are mapping their own informal settlements and giving power and literally put themselves on the map for the very first time ever. It's truly an inspiring project, and one that I really enjoy learning about as they progress. The next slide is a screenshot of what is possibly the most high-profile deployment of Ushahidi to date, a project that some colleagues of mine at Ushahidi and I launched just a few hours after the earthquake, and that my fellow graduate students at the Fletcher School at Tufts University have been running since the very first few days, doing near real-time crisis mapping of this mass response. To some colleagues of to set up a text number, just like you saw in Kenya, a 4636 number that anybody inside Haiti could send their urgent life and death needs with their location information in near real time. And literally first responders, including FEMA, the Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and others, would take that information, send out the choppers, and rescue people. So this is freedom of speech 2.0, perhaps in a disaster context. But the main reason I wanted to show and share this with you was just to show how far, in a way, the UCAD platform has come. A number of new features that have been added. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see what we've done with the Get Alerts feature, which allows anybody to subscribe to alerts and to define. You see this red marker here. Anybody, you could sort of say, okay, I want to put that red marker in southern Port-au-Prince or in the south of the country, and say, I only want to receive information within this particular area of this area, and I can also tag this information. So if there were to be a Freedom of Speech 2.0 UCAD deployment, and you were interested in monitoring crackdowns on freedom of speech, for example, and that's all you wanted to know when there was crackdowns on freedom of speech, you could say, well, only when information is tagged as repression against information sharing, you can tag that, and you receive that information by an automated email or even a text message. So you could be in Iran, Tehran, you could be in Zimbabwe, and if you're just interested in crackdowns on freedom of speech in Harare, you could define specific areas and what you want to learn about. This increases sort of real-time situational awareness, which has important, I think, implications in terms of journalism as well, and citizen journalism. Hi, why Tom? I'll try and explain why.